it's not always easy to know when you've had too much to drink. I'm sure we've all been in situations where we've had to take the car keys out of somebody's hand just because they insist that they're sober enough to drive, but we know that they're clearly too intoxicated to safely drive. Sometimes we think that that's just a case of stubbornness when a person is insisting that they're not intoxicated, but we can see clearly that they are. But what if it's actually the alcohol that puts you into this state where you really cannot assess how drunk you are? So recent findings have indicated that we are all really pretty bad judges of our own intoxication levels. And this has something to do with judging us against peer groups. It's kind of interesting. There was a 2016 study published in BMC Public Health where they asked individuals in a peer social group how drunk they thought they were, and then they took blood alcohol concentration levels of that individual to actually see how drunk they really were. So you've got the question of how drunk do you think you are, and then you've got the science, the fact of how drunk you really are. And what was really interesting is that these groups of people would look at their friends, and if their friends were particularly rowdy or intoxicated looking, they would immediately say, well, I'm not as drunk as that. So clearly I am not that intoxicated. I am more sober than that individual. And then if the person was sober looking, one of their friends looked like they were fairly quiet, having a sober conversation or something, they would immediately presume that they had an excessive amount of alcohol in their system. So it's kind of interesting how they would measure it against the friends in the group. And this was particularly true for people of the same gender. So you can kind of see how that would work. This is part of human behavior. We look at other people and associate what we perceive as our own behavior in comparison to theirs. But this can be really dangerous, especially if you're hanging out with a bunch of binge drinkers, because we are obviously now perceiving ourselves as not as drunk as somebody who's binge drinking. And that's dangerous because you're probably binge drinking as well. Alternatively, if you're hanging around with sober people, you can actually become self-conscious about drinking, which could be a good thing. In fact, those same researchers that did that study suggested that by placing more sober people into nightlife, we might actually cut drinking down overall. It's a really interesting concept. So how do you stay mindful of your drinking, you personally? Well, you can seek out social groups that drink less. And I know that that can be hard if you've got a group of hard drinking buddies that you hang out with, but you can start making like a second group of friends that don't drink as much. Or you can ask your first group of friends if you can do activities that don't involve drinking alcohol. You can bring a non-drinking friend with you. And this way, you've got somebody that can definitely tell you when you've had too much. And also just the fact of being with somebody who's not drinking will inspire you to drink less. You can avoid binging. Now, moderate drinking, as we all know, is perfectly normal part of socializing, but it's important to know when you cross that line into binge drinking, and that can be generally 4 to 5 drinks in a 2-hour setting. So above this level of 4 to 5 drinks in 2-hour time span, or more drinks than that, you're really getting to the point where you're not in control and you're not able to judge your level of intoxication or what you're capable of. So it's really, really dangerous. Another way to stay mindful of your drinking, and I think this is a wonderful way, is to get a measuring device, a breathalyzer. It's so cool, and you can actually pair it with your smartphone. So you can just look down, put a breath into it, and figure out what your blood alcohol concentration level is. And then you know how much you've had to drink. You know when you're over the limit, and you can be safe. So those are some ideas, and if you are concerned about your drinking in social situations or just in general, it's really important for you to do a little bit of research now before things get really bad. Look into medication-assisted treatment for alcohol use disorder. Look into telemedicine. Do something if you want to decrease or stop drinking. You always have to ask yourself one question. Is alcohol negatively affecting my life? If the answer is yes, it's time to do something about it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.